Hello, and welcome to another MarketMuse Content Strategy webinar. I'm your host, the co-founder and chief product officer for MarketMuse, Jeff Coyle. Today's discussion is entitled Sales and Marketing Alignment. It's going to be a discussion focused on a number of my favorite topics: sales enablement, how that works along with content mapping, how that works along with content marketing. And before I intro our special guest today, a few housekeeping notes. Ask us questions, anything. Well, most anything, as long as it's reasonably relevant to something that we know. Ask us anything in the GoToMeeting, in the GoToWebinar, and we'll either get to them in line, or we'll hit as many as we can at the end. Anything that overflows, we'll personally answer via email. The recording and notes are available after the webinar and will be sent via email, so look for those. And while you're at it, go download the rest of the recordings. We have an amazing collection from, high growth startup founders like Brennan White from Cortex, SEO superstars like Stephen Spencer, Andy Crestodina on analytics, just all around brilliant folks like Kevin Indig from now G2. If you download multiple recordings, shoot me a note and I'll set up a personal content strategy session with you and one of our content advisory leads. Okay, now I'll intro today's special guest. She's one of my favorite people in content marketing. I'll brag a little bit. Definitely is one of the most fun speakers to see. We've spoken together at Content Marketing World, a number of other places, and we're going to be at Content Tech in San Diego in a few months, which if you're not booked for that, please do. She's an amazing author, Effective Sales Enablement, Global Content Marketing, Pam Didner.
All right, it's wonderful to be here, and thank you for the glamorous intro. I really
thank you. So tell the audience more about your business and your background in online marketing, sales enablement, and everything in between.
All right, very good. Just very quickly, Pam Didner here, just like Jeff introduced me. And I was in the corporate side and enterprise world, B2B marketing, actually for about 20 years. And I left and wrote 2 books and decided to become a pool author. I'm incredibly successful on that. I'm joking. I left and wrote 2 books and used that launchpad for my independent consulting business. And I've been very fortunate to actually be able to stand on my own feet in the past 5 years. And 2 things I'm very passionate about. One is B2B marketing, and the other one is supporting sales. I like to be abused by salespeople. No, joking. Really, I really enjoy working with the salespeople, especially on the B2B side. The life cycle is actually the purchasing cycle is very long. It's wonderful working with them to actually see how they qualify the prospect until they close the deals. So yeah, it's really about sales and marketing alignment, especially on the B2B side.
Great. So, I mean, that's where we connect so much. I mean, I've generated, sadly, probably between 50 million and 100 million leads. And it's how those go through the pipelines at the businesses that we work with, and how often marketing sees the pipeline differently than sales. But before we move on to the bulk of what we're going to talk about today, I was wondering, do you typically get hired by a sales leadership or marketing leadership when you're working with folks?
Great that you ask. Majority of time, I would say 100% of the time, I am a hire on the marketing side. And I'm the one for most to say I'm not a salesperson. I was not born as a salesperson, and I was never a salesperson. Well, actually, I sell myself all the time right now, but for longest time, I'm always a marketer supporting sales, or I'm always an operations person supporting sales. Because I am in that role for a long period of time, I kind of see what we need to do to be together. And so because I'm always coming from the marketing side, so majority of the people I talk to tend to be the marketers and working with them in terms of how they can better supporting sales. So yes, to answer your question, it's more on the marketing team.
So how does that onboarding look? How does that first day, that audit or evaluation, how does that start? Because you're coming in with the marketing team. Are you interviewing sales reps? Is this something, because I'm really looking to see if somebody were to work with you, but if somebody weren't and they have sales enablement challenges and they know, they're putting out materials, they have amazing content. I mean, if they're listening to this webinar, they likely have really high quality content on their site.
Right.
And what are you looking for in that initial discussion, which, maybe a head of marketing or somebody who's in growth or search engine optimization for their team who's listening would want to collect to be ready to give to you, or to start evaluating for themselves? What are you really looking for as far as materials and the means in which they're getting them into the sales rep hands?
Most of the time when I engage with my clients, or the clients that come to me, they usually are encountering a specific set of challenge. For example, they've been supporting sales for a long period of time, and salespeople are not happy or kind of ignore them. Or they are in the process really launching the initiative and pivot a portion of the marketing activities or roles and responsibility to supporting sales. And they were like, okay, now we're going to pivot, or we're going to take that initiative. What are some of the best practices out there that we should be aware of and that we should do? So in general, these are the two possible scenarios. There are more, and that people reach out to me. And because they are looking into how to supporting sales, so majority of time when you're talking about sales enablement, really the industry definition, the sales enablement, especially on sales side, it's really about sales onboarding, sales training. And there's a lot of the companies that are doing that, right? So for my job specifically, when I say enabling sales from marketing side, I'm not necessarily talking about, we have to do, my forte is really focusing on the sales onboarding, sales training, and tell them how to sales and what to say. Well, what to say maybe, but coming from marketing's perspective, how we can better align on that. Does that make sense? So yeah. I understand that sales enablement, the industry definition, especially on sales side, is very much very specific, and it's all about sales onboarding and sales training. There's a portion of that element that marketing actually can provide help, but I am not talking about how I can do that specifically for sales side. Is that helpful? So looking into what marketing can do to better and enable and engage with the sales team and make them successful.
No, that absolutely makes sense. And that's really an important distinction, because you might have a sales team who is doing a more big box sales training, like with this Sandler or value selling, or with Inflection.
All kinds of Millers, etc. Yes.
And how the marketing team, in many cases, and especially with a 100-person to 300-person company, the marketing team often will get shut out of those trainings. Or they won't even be part of the setup. So have you ever encountered that? What types of things are you, trying to influence in a situation that maybe that might have already happened?
So from my perspective, from marketers' perspective, there are multiple ways that marketers can actually enable and supporting sales. And let's use the examples that you are talking about, the sales onboarding and sales training. And that's focused on just the scenario you mentioned, which is 100 to 300 people sales organization. That's usually about mid-size, right? And they probably make, I would say, $30 million or more in terms of revenue gives and take. And that means there are a couple things, right? And because it's a growing company, so there is a growth trajectories in terms of the salespeople that you need to actually onboard, the new hires. And also you have a product that constantly being updated. That's assuming it's a software product or whatnot. So there's new features that are being added, and a new technology that has been tested. Therefore, there is a product-specific type of training you also have to provide to existing sales force. So with that being said, you are right, the onboarding and training. And a lot of onboarding, especially a very established onboarding, tend to be 2 or 3 days. Like, when a new hire started, right, there's the first 2 or 3 days tend to be employee orientation, right? So the HR will talk about, what's called the conduct, the IT will talk about, when you're going to get your computer, the passwords and everything else. And then there's a sales training in terms of give everybody in terms of the very high level product specific trainings. That portion of it in the past tend to be done by sales operations. What I'm trying to say is, if marketing is working on messaging framework, you should actually collaborate that with your sales operation and make your job easy. That's one. Second thing, out of that whole 2 or 3 days of new employee orientation, there's always a branding training, right? As a salesperson, you are external facing, right? So you are representing the companies, how to use the brand, how to use the logo, what kind of sales template should be used, what kind of email template should be used, what's the tone and manner of your email communication. That training should come from marketing because that's part of marketing's job. So as a 2 or 3 days of orientation, there's probably different departments that will engage, and the marketing should be part of it. And another thing that marketing can actually help tremendously is research and the competitive analysis, right? And some of that in the past, like I said, based on the enterprises I work with, that can also be taken care of on the sales side. But if marketing have a research, that should also be part of orientation. So when I'm talking about marketing's help to the sales side, the onboarding and training is one way you can contribute, and the other one is actually content mapping. But I know you and I talk about that, so I will wait for your cue to talk about that.
Oh, absolutely. No, I think that's why not? We'll get into that in a bit. I think that before we talk about content mapping, just to validate onboarding, you got to look at your current onboarding. How much of it do you have any influence on? If you do have it, is it staying up to date? And then if you have feature updates or product updates, are they just going into, on the website, or are they integrating into that new hire, or are they getting ongoing updates? I know, certainly we launch so often. We have so many things going on all the time. It's a common battle for us. It's a common fight for us, as to make sure everybody is aware of something. And sometimes it becomes you're almost singing and dancing and saying, this is the coolest thing. Here's how you integrate it into these workflows. But if the product marketing materials, if the materials that people are using on the day-to-day basis, if they don't change those workflows, then when the excitement dies down, they're just going to go back to their old processes. So how do you try to get how do you get a sales rep who's been trained, has gone through that training, the training gets updated, but then you have this new release? What do you do to ensure and validate that that's going to get used, that new material, that they're not just going back to what they were originally taught or what they were originally trained on?
So let me just make sure I understand your question specifically. So you are talking about that there is a new product, new features being added. Are you talking about how to get them to talk about the new features? Or are you talking about there's new tools that they should use, but they always recede to their old behaviors not using that?
I think both.
They are different. I can answer those two questions differently, but I want to know exactly which question that from your perspective.
I was thinking of number two, but I think number one's very relevant too. But I think number two is the one that in the fast moving SaaS business in financial services, you're mostly going to run into.
Okay. So how to change salespeople's behavior? Okay. That is a holy grail type of question. I think every single company and anybody who is supporting sales would like to know that answer. That means I don't have a solid answer for you. I supported sales for over 10 years, and I have to say, depending on the initiatives or the tools I launch, my success rate with my salespeople to change their behavior is less than 50%. That means you are totally right. In terms of the salespeople, it's very hard for them to change their behavior, especially something they have done in the past have been successful, has been incredibly successful to get them meeting the quota, to get them talk to the prospect, to get them to accelerate their sales conversion. They want to do the same thing. I'm the same way too. It's very hard to change me. This works. That's what I'm gonna do, right? So for longest time, I use Google. I use Word. I'm the Microsoft Office 365 user. So whenever I try to type something, I open a Word doc until I start putting a team together, and everybody's using, guess what? Google Doc, Now I have to change my behavior, so I use a Google Doc. So whenever I open a Word document, I was like, God, crap, I need to open a Google Doc, because that's how my team is working, so I'm changing my behavior. So what I'm trying to say is there are multiple ways to try to change the salespeople's behavior, depending on the priority of your initiative. There are some is huge. For example, the company is launching Salesforce. Okay, for longest time, the salespeople, they are old-fashioned. They don't want to enter anything into a Salesforce. But you have to enter stuff into a Salesforce. That's a central database to keep track in terms of your engagement with your prospect, what's going on, what has been shared, blah, 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 right? And, but for a long time, I worked with a manufacturing client. Like they launched a Salesforce, nobody's using it. Initially, the first 3 months. The tool was there, the training was done, everything was done, nobody was using it. It's hard to change your behavior until finally the marketing people convince the VP of sales saying, you know what, you cannot do this. We either have to shut down Salesforce and not using it, go back to a dark days, you don't know what's going on, or you have to force everybody to use it. And the way to force everybody to use it, unfortunately, is tied their bonus with a Salesforce usage. You reach certain type of percentage of usage, then you get your bonus. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. So for a big initiative, you have to tie with something that they care about. But for small initiative, you know what? I have seen this, bribe works. You bribe them, build a relationship with them, get them to try, get them to see the benefit. Cookies works, American Express card works, you know, a Starbucks gift card works. I'm telling you, all this works. That personal relationship you build with them, get them to try, get them to change their behavior. It's a long play. Yep. There's no shortcut.
No, and that's why that was really the question, because what we find is people when they're communicating about this, and that's why I brought this slide up. What can we do to better understand sales? A lot of times it's a lot about empathy and what drives them. How you have to collaborate with the sales leadership to understand their compensation and to understand their behaviors. And often, just like you said earlier in this discussion, maybe you do have one person who you feel can be the tip of the spear and can be the person who could have the first success. And, they put a big number on the board. And by the way, I wouldn't have been able to do this without that wonderful document that Pam made that walked my client through the maturity model. And it is. Sometimes it is orchestrated. Sometimes it feels like it's, sometimes also it was a great question, a great answer, because sometimes they don't tell anybody about what they did. They're like, oh, well, yeah, I used that one deck, but maybe they didn't. Maybe they pointed them towards 6 documents. So one thing that we do is when a deal closes, we'll go through and look at all the articles on the blog that person read.
You did a post.
Ask the sales rep, what PDFs did you send? What white papers did you send? What decks did you use? And if those things map to things that you want, to the behavior, to thing, and that goes back to your American Express gift card. Sometimes to get them to tell you, sometimes to get them to tell you what they use, honestly, you gotta grease the wheels, and a few beers always helps sometimes too. And I think that's a great point.
Yeah. So Jeff, to actually add additional thoughts to your point, and this is one thing I learned over time supporting sales. And you are totally right. Salespeople are not going to share anything with you. First of all, they are too busy. There are stuff that they have to think about, they have to do, they have to close account. If they are not closing account, they have to find prospect, they have to build their pipeline. They are way too busy.
Right.
And for marketers out there who are listening, the one advice I want to share with you is salespeople will not automatically share any information with you. And that's just the way it is. Accept it, embrace it, and find a way to get information from them. The way to actually get that is build that relationship with them. Okay, and the slide right here, what can marketers do to better to understand sales better? And I personally feel that having that personal relationship is the first step. Salespeople is all about relationship. It doesn't matter they are selling a sales service cloud-based platform, or they are selling this like, $20 million, John Deere construction tractor. It doesn't matter. Salespeople are relationship person. You need to build that relationship with them. That's the first, okay? For them to change behavior, not to change behavior, set that aside. Build that relationship with them first. Second thing is, the way I build relationship with them, for longest time, I didn't do a very good job. The first several years I supporting sales, I'm the first one to admit it. Okay, I shuffled the marketing content to them, and I went to the sales huddle meeting, and I say, these are the things that we have, use it. Guess what? They kind of ignore me. And the way that I found to actually understand a whole lot better is I ask them questions. I say, what kind of rejections do you get on a daily basis? That's the first question I ask. Oh my God, yeah, using that as a therapy session with me. They were like, oh my God, you know what? Oh, I just got a call. I did a cold call today, and they hang up on me. All right. And I listen and try to understand. What kind of rejection they get day in and day out, because they have a quota they have to meet, right? And not everybody they talk to are pleasant.
Right.
And to be honest with you, I did not really understand that until I started working for myself, until I started do cold prospecting, until I started reaching out to the people I don't know and stop pitching myself. I got tons of rejection. Now I get it. But before I didn't get it, but at least I made an effort to listen.
Absolutely.
Right? So
Absolutely.
that actually helps tremendously. That's one. Second thing is I shadow a couple of them for a day or two. When I shadow them, literally, they didn't go anywhere they want. On the phone the whole time I was in their cube, right? So there's nothing exciting about shadowing them like visiting clients. No, I got to do one times, but majority of time is actually attending meeting with them the whole time, right? So shadow with them is another one. And then third is just like you said, you did a postmortem after the deals are won, and they're kind of asking the sales, hey, what are the things that you went through to get that deal closed? What kind of content that you use? If there's anything from your perspective that marketing can do to support you, where should we inject ourselves? Yeah. So these are the type of questions you have to ask. And the most important question is rejection. When you ask that, they start talking nonstop.
They're fun stories too. I mean, as a person, when we founded MarketMuse, and initially all the sales were managed by me, my co-founder. You get some really good stories built up. Nothing's more fun than that. And coming at it from somebody who was a marketer turned consultative salesperson, and then now back to marketer and product. Nothing's better than getting beat up a few times. Nothing's better than having an unfortunate experience to say.
Humbles you.
Well, but also it's the I wish I had those materials. And if you're not a marketer, sometimes if you're just a salesperson, you don't know what to ask for. Like I would have killed it if this presentation had been customized. They're not just going to say that because they maybe don't know that maybe we could provide industry specific materials, or even if the deal's big enough, account specific materials. Like we'll bend over backwards if Boeing is rolling in, and and so sometimes they don't know what they can get. Sometimes they don't know what they should ask for, and that's from personal experience where if we had one deck, and it would have been a good thing. But I think that's a good segue to one of my favorite topics that you speak about and that you've written about in the Sales Enablement book. Is it chapters 5 through 8? Or no, those are the good ones? I forget. So what content mapping is the most misunderstood part of SEO. Okay, that's a completely different topic of content mapping. But in sales and marketing materials, how we map content to the marketing cycle, to the customer journey, and then to the sales cycle are often completely different. And that's something that opened my eyes when last time I saw you speak about it. And just imagine, it looks kind of like this grid on this slide. but there's names for the journey. And what you woke me up to was that if you've only got one funnel or one map, or you haven't had complete lockstep with sales, you're going to run into some problems here, and you're going to find that people aren't doing what you think they're doing. What can you elaborate on there that you've learned, and how should someone even start it? Because a lot of people on this call may be on the marketing team and they haven't ever done a mapping exercise. So
yeah, definitely. I assume that the content, for the number of the contents or the content pieces, is, or the quantity of the content is not a huge issue for your company or for the listeners out there. And Jeff brought a very good point in terms of content mapping. And like I said, based on my past experience working with the marketers, right? When we talk about content marketing, that we create content and we use content as a marketing outreach and to get the prospect interested in our products or our company. So it's a hook, right? So it's content marketing. And but if on the technology segment, if you think about it, if you actually sell any products, especially complex product, it doesn't matter if it's a John Deere's construction tractor that worth millions of dollars, or is say MarketMuse, right? And your product, which is enterprise version, right? It can be complicated even, and it's AI based and about content optimization. And the product can be complicated. It requires some explanations. And the explanation is not something that, oh, I get on a call with my prospect and I start talking and then they will understand. Sometimes you start talking, you have to follow up with certain kind of materials that they can see. And a lot of people see that as a sales collateral. Okay, right. But from my perspective, the definition of sales collateral has been expanded tremendously in the past probably 15 years, right? The sales collateral can come into 2-pager, or it can be a long form content like the case study, or it can be a video of a how to show you how to use your specific, say, features. So the sales collateral, from my perspective, they are content. They are content you use to communicate with your prospect, to showcase your products so they understand the benefits of your products and what they can do about it, and help them to facilitate the buying decision. So if you think about it, the marketing are doing this content marketing, and the sales side are using sales collateral, aka content, to actually engage, right? So there's a sales-centric content, there's a marketing-centric content. And when I was working on the corporate side or on the client side, right, and I did take some of the content, the marketing content, and I share that with the salespeople. And the salespeople are saying, some of them, no, that's too marketing, cannot use it. So you need to modify a little bit and make it a sell to type of content, or sales through, right? Sales through is the marketing materials that salespeople can pass to the end users. Does that make sense? Yeah. So the sell to and the sales through type of content that they can use. But if you look at the marketing content management library, there are plenty of content. If somebody pay attention to it, we can actually communicate that with the sales team, that they can actually use it or upload this to a sales content management library. Okay, so that's one. But how do we make that useful? And how do we make sure that salespeople are aware these type of content? And how can we tell them when they can use it, those content?
The hardest part.
And the one way of doing that, Jeff, like you indicated, is it possible, and people who are listening, can you just visualize with me? Is it possible you can map some of the content to sales stages? The sales stages, it's different than customer journey, right? The sales see their sales cycle as they prospecting somebody, they qualify somebody. After they qualify, they probably do a demo. After they do a demo, hopefully they like it, they make a decision, and you send a proposal. And then the last stage is probably upsales and cross sales after, say, you close one deal, right? So their sales stages are very similar, but there's a different nuances based on the industries and based on the product that you sell. So is it possible you can identify your company or your sales team's sales stages, high level, 6 of them, 6 major stages, kind of like you do your customer journey, right? You don't do like 10, 20 of them. There's probably a certain stages that you focus, right? So if you identify a sales stages and say, let's pick one product. If you sell multiple products for your company, let's pick the hero product, one product. For that product, the content for that product, can you map that into the sales stages? And when you start it, don't start it, oh my God, you know, I have 300 pieces of content for my hero product. Well, pick top 50, the most download, the most view, you know, the most, I don't know, most download, most view, and the most value from your perspective in terms of lead scoring, doesn't matter. Pick top 20 based on your selection criteria and use that as a starting point and see if you can map it into a sales stages. That's what I was talking about at the content marketing world, and that's what Jeff was mentioning. Is that helpful, Jeff?
Yeah, no, it is. I think it's the thing that I see content strategy teams, content marketing teams completely ignore. They spend all their time writing content, publishing it. It generates all this traffic. It qualifies leads. They do content upgrades. So they'll do a content upgrade, which it's a kind of a new stage. It used to be called targeted downloads or second click targeted lead capture, whatever you want to call it, right? But they'll do content upgrades, and those materials, the user will come in, they will download that content upgrade, then they will pass into the sales cycle, and then they will lose track of anything else they read. And the marketing team absolutely needs to coach the teams on, okay, that person read that article, that's an early stage awareness. After you have the demo, here's the collection of next articles that we've already written. They're already there. Read these. Yeah. That's like, you know, it's like book chapter number 2, book chapter number 3. It's getting you from somebody who is uneducated to becoming more of an educated buyer. I had Bob Apollo had an interview, a webinar, which you should go download, by the way, you, Pam, and everybody else. But he was saying people that have an unknown need the most materials. And if they've never bought, maybe they haven't bought anything that is your price point before, well, maybe you need something else. So you got to have that feedback loop. I love the fact that I bet you many marketers on this call haven't thought about this. And this was a new thing for me. And I was a salesperson too. And I had everything against my user intent profiling and against my content mapping for the customer journey, but I didn't have it against the sales journey. And I didn't have it, that was just a big breakthrough. So if you've got, and make it fun, put an expand column, right?
Yeah.
After you close, make the first time you talk to somebody, here's the pool of stuff you should consider. You know, and how do you coach the choose your own adventure part of that? You know, it's like if the person's like this, you know, look at it. You know, you can only teach so much logic paths. You know, but what do you do if it is, let's say, 20 pieces? Do you give them scenarios? What kinds of things have you done?
You know, that's actually a very good question. And the things I found the most effective, folks, is be part of the sales huddle meeting. And Jeff, you probably have a weekly meeting with your sales team, right? You talk about different accounts, how everybody's doing, what's the game plan for the next one. And most of the time, that meeting is only for salespeople.
Yeah.
What I have come to realize is attending that sales huddle meeting is huge, huge actually for marketers. And of course, I'm not saying that the whole marketing team needs to attend. That's not my point. The point is, you know, like your job is supporting sales, you should be part of that sales huddle meeting. And attending those meetings, you listen to some of the things that's currently going on in terms of the challenges that the salespeople encounter, right? When you are listening to it, if you are very familiar with the content library in terms of your content by products and by different customer journeys, and also say the metrics in terms of how different content pieces perform, from time to time, when they are talking, hey, I'm talking to, I'm just MarketMuse, and to sell them the sales enablement platform. And I had a conversation with Jeff a couple times. You know what? However, Jeff still have a question and concern for certain features. And you say, hey, you know what? That's kind of interesting. We actually have a how-to video that we talk about that feature a little bit more. Yes, our product at this time is a little clunky, but there are a couple things you can get around it. Hey, can I send that video to you? Maybe you can send that to Jeff. What do you think? You know, it's more or less that you are part of that conversation. You listen and you say, okay, you know what? There's a couple things I think we can do. Or, oh, okay, you need that. Let me just check and see if we have something to help you. So is that just-in-time responses is what sales are looking for. So your question in terms of what can the marketers do, from my perspective, is if you can be part of a sales huddle meeting, that will be fantastic. That's number one.
Couldn't agree more.
Second thing is, I do understand sales huddle meeting, a lot of times is confidential. They don't want anybody else to attend. I get it. I've been to that situation as well, okay? All the account specific information is confidential. They don't want to talk. They don't want to share. Great. If that's the case, my take on this is, well, do a newsletter, right? You have 20 pieces of content based on different sales stages. You know, send out the regular newsletter. It doesn't have to be like daily. No, you don't want to bombard them with kind of daily email. Maybe a week, every single month, send out something and say, hey, these are new content that's coming, or these are new pieces of content you can use at this type of situation. Does that make sense? Yeah. So again, that's a newsletter. That's kind of like a different form of communication. So most of the time, I checked the opening rate on that when I was doing it. My opening rate is not very high. Right. If I just track the first 7 to 10 days, the rate is low, like less than 20% opening my email. However, what I have noticed over a period of time, when there is a need, the salespeople will go back and search, you know, Pam Didner, and a bunch of email newsletters will come up. They were like, They will click on that. The one, they were like, okay, I think I saw this somewhere on one of this newsletter, and they would click and open it, and it was like, all of a sudden, it's something they need. Right. So when you are working with salespeople on the newsletter, don't use the opening rate as your metrics. I can tell you at this point, the opening rate is going to be low. But if you send it, a lot of time they don't delete their email. They don't. Mm-hmm. And when it's time to need it, they will say, okay, Pam always send me this shit. All right, now I need it. I'll take a look, type Pam Didner newsletter. It was like, okay, I think I remember I saw it somewhere like, May or June. And they search, they find what they want. Or they just send email to me directly. Pam.
It's almost like,
can you tell me where that is? That helps. That happens all the time.
That's what Slack's for. We get at least once a week. Where's the competitive landscape? Where's the most recent deck for industry for financial services? What one thing
Can I just add one more thing?
Yeah.
And this is for listeners as well. The reality is, I have several people came to me and asked me, how can we make that go away? My God, drives me insane. They can find it on content management library. They just don't want to search, and they come to me. I was like, you know what? Change your attitude.
I agree.
They actually are important. That's why they come to you. That's the first. Second thing is, it will never go away. I tried. Nope, didn't work. And then I changed my attitude. I was like, you know what? I feel their love. Okay, that's the way it is.
I take it as an opportunity, and so does my team. Hey, tell me more about the deal. Let's talk about it. Let's learn about it. You've nailed it. And when you said this to me, I might have even been more than a year ago. I don't even know if it was Content Marketing World or whatever. But you said to me, it was like, you can elaborate. It was change the way you're listening to someone tell their war stories. And it was, and I thought about it from both sides, as someone who's sold for a long period of time, and as someone who's been in this situation where I'm saying, how can I circulate this material? It's my secret weapon. Why does nobody use it?
Those people want to use it, knock themselves out.
Yeah, and it is. It's you, instead of just listening to the tall tale that turns into a closed won or a closed loss, listen to it from the vantage point of each time they came to a point in that story where they could have used a material. a link to a case study, an article that you wrote, a page on your site, write it down and draw the narrative. Well, and it's not that you're giving them notes like you're a director and they're an actor, but you can certainly provide annotations to say, here's where that might have changed the narrative. Here's the material that might have changed. This material you used was from 18 months ago. We actually have a new version. I mean, there is some ways that you can do it as long as you've got that relationship. If you don't, then you're going to just sound like a big old jerk, and you're giving them notes. You can only do it with respect. And I think you've really nailed and hit that one on the head. And so I have a question from the audience that's very relevant to this.
Okay, please.
We have content that is focused heavily on, we're targeting search traffic. Hey, obviously the MarketMuse. So the search traffic on our site, we have some materials that are content marketing, that's education materials. If we have someone that's reading content that isn't specifically targeted for our product, but we don't necessarily have that interim content, we don't have content that bridges the gap between our blog and the sales team, should that be the first place we build content, or should we be focusing on just something else? I think they're kind of answering their own question. But what do you think about if somebody's read materials you've published that aren't directly related to your value proposition? So maybe you wrote an article on your blog. Let's just say you wrote an article about PPC, paid search. And what do you do to connect them to your consulting practice or something like that? I think that's the nature of the question. In our case, let's say we wrote an article 5 years ago and it's a little bit out of date. What do we do to path them to something that's relevant? I think that's a good question.
Yeah. Okay,
yeah.
So
it's hard.
Yes, it is hard. Well, that's actually a great question. And that's also, a question that shows the difference between the sales and marketing. If you think about it, a lot of content that we create is top of the funnel. Mm-hmm. And the sales really focus on the bottom of funnel. But the middle part, the consideration, kind of gray area, well, we're not really focused on. So your question is very much that your job is really focused on the top of the funnel and generate that brand awareness, generate the interest for a specific technology or specific product that you're offering, or even for your company for that matter, right? And then the salespeople that they are focusing on really the bottom of the funnel, closing the deals, and there's definitely a gap. And so to answer that question, of course, if I'm just saying this way, you're like, oh, you know what? My natural inclination is like, oh, you probably should look into build the content that have to bridge the gap. However, there are multiple options to deal with. The one thing that you need to do is probably look into that gap and possibly build the content to bridge that gap. That's one option. The other option I would actually strongly suggest is how is marketing team measure themselves, right? What are some of your measurement and metrics that drive this behavior that you are creating content only on top of the funnel, right? So let's go back and think about it, how you are being measured first. Because at the end of the day, your measurement, your success metrics, your KPI obviously guide and dictate your behavior. So identify what you are measured first, and determine, should we change that measurement? Then we'll change our behavior. Does that make sense? So
I think it's right on the money.
Always come back and the question is valid. It happens to actually many organizations, and don't feel that you are, oh my God, it only happened to my organization. No, it happens to everybody, including me, right? I'm working for myself. That gray area in terms of how do I bring the top of funnel down to the next level? In a way, you need to think like a conversion. All of a sudden, you are thinking, oh, I built this brand awareness for MarketMuse. Everybody's aware of it. I'm aware of it, but I'm not. I am not Jeff's ideal customer profile. Even though I'm consume the content all the time, say on MarketMuse, but I'm not. I cannot afford it. Your price is too expensive, Jeff. Anyway, I can't afford it to MarketMuse, right? I'm not the ideal customer profile. So ultimately, at the end, They need to create content to weed me out.
Mhm.
That's what I call conversion, right? So the funnel is getting smaller and smaller and narrower. And you need to understand that ultimately you need to weed people out. And the content that you created for someone about your product specific that they are interested in reading might be your prospect. If they are not interested in reading, weed them out. Weed them out. It's the same thing. Like on the email, everybody's afraid that people unsubscribe. Don't. Put the unsubscribe button loud and clear. Because if they hit us unsubscribe, great. They qualify themselves out.
No.
It's not a big thing.
You're right. I mean, you're right on so many different levels. It's to say you don't want to leave them out of the discussion. However, if you're measured on organic, and this is most of the teams that we work with, they are measured on top of funnel. They're measured on organic search traffic. They're measured on omni-channel traffic through all of their sides. They're measured on MQLs in many cases. Very few of them are going to be measured on SQLs and opportunities. We are, obviously, we measure ourselves, but you've got to, and then who's responsible for the middle of the funnel? Who's responsible? That's a team effort, and that's where you've got to be unified, and that's the hardest part. You got to be hard. It's the hardest part.
Right, and that is something, I hate saying this, the truth is, especially with a big company, that needs to be top down.
Yeah.
Your management, senior managers, you need to take the initiative to drive that alignment. It has to be top down. There's only so much you can do bottoms up as an individual contributor.
Yeah, so I think the content mapping exercise, and on your site there are some templates, and I know there's some tool kits on doing your first content mapping exercise, and it shows you some examples. And I'm sure if you followed up to Pam or me, we'll send you those examples too. But you know, it's an important step. It's where you see where your gaps are, just like when you're doing content strategy. You know, where you have strong content on this topic and you're thin over here, you've completely had a blind spot. A lot of content marketing teams, we find they went too heavy on the bottom of the funnel. They're only talking about pricing, right? So they didn't attract enough top, or they got top of funnel and nothing's in the middle. Nothing's coaching the person to determine if they're the right fit to even take that next step. And that's where the real art, the art of sales enablement happens, in my opinion. So I love the way that you described that.
And by the way, if you want the templates or the content mapping, reach out to me or Jeff, and I'm more than happy to share with you. Or you can go to my website. Brainstorming with me is free, so schedule a 20-minute call.
Wonderful. Great. And one more question. Excellent question. So when we're looking to train for expansion content, so you got existing content, I assume. So land and expand deals, I assume. Customers you want to grow. What types of content should you build for the sales team for those expansion motions, or for existing clients? Sorry.
Yeah, so from my perspective, that's upsells and cross sales.
Yeah, exactly right. Upsell, cross.
Is that correct? Okay. You know, very good. And again, I would look at the product portfolios. Like what are usually the products that your sales team people try to sell after to existing customers? Is it just renewal, or it just there's a different tier of your product? Again, I'm talking about SaaS again. Or you know, it's if you sell physical products, is that the parts they want to buy, or is this adjacency, which is they buy a product A and the product B is a complementary to that product? Does that make sense? So it comes back to what are some of the products that the salespeople they are focusing on cross sales and upsales. If they focus on renewal, right? And I would have a conversation with salespeople. How do they initiate that conversation? Is it because there is a trigger, right? 3 months before the expiration day, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, I need to look at the usage report. You know, I want to see if that person is actually using a product. If they're not using it, we probably need to get them to use it in the next 3 months before they can renew. So if that's the case, your content needs to focus on, well, how to get them to use your product.
Oh, Pam, you're talking about everybody on this call right now. They're all like, oh, geez, yeah, we all
If
know
it's
them.
like existing, if they're buying, like I say, John Deere construction tractor, well, their parts they need to renew, right? I don't know, maybe the oil needs to be changed, the wheels need to be changed. So what are some of that, right? And again, it's coming back to the information that the usage of the product. And so this tractor has been to like 5 different websites, has been used every day, so it's totally worn out, and you can talk about the parts recommendation for that. Right. Again, it comes back, what are the salespeople's approach for upsells and cross sales? If you understand that, you can create content to complement that.
Excellent. No, so it really does depend on the, I think you could have some if the more buttoned up your CS process, your customer success processes are, or your renewal processes are, you may be able to make that more regimented, but a lot of times it's going to be the salesperson's style is going to influence. And so if you do, you may try to weave it in, but it's going to be hard to do those in a standard way. A good example I remember seeing is if you use an EBR or QBR process for customer success, quarterly business review or executive business review, you can try to grab those decks and look for patterns.
I like that suggestion. But
look for patterns in that.
But the QBR. So can I just provide a quick report, a quick thought on the QBR?
Oh, please. That's one of my favorite topics. Okay, please tell me more. I'm as critical as I am encouraging of those. So.
Okay, so QBR, quarterly business report, right? So this usually for people who are listening and you're on the enterprise side or the B2B marketing side, especially on sales, for the very, very targeted count that try to build that relationship between the two sides, the vendors or even the customers. There's a QBR, which is quarterly business review, okay? When I was on the corporate side, and when we do a QBR, it's always a big deal. It's really the VP of sales talking to the CEO of our customers, and the CEO, CTO, CIO, so it's a big deal. What I have come to realize, and maybe my QBR experience is different than yours, Jeff. The QBR experience that we have tend to really focus on very high level, like, what is the co-marketing that we will do? What are some of the MOU we will do together? It's incredibly strategic. And what I have come to realize for the cross sales and upsell for that kind of level, it's like the VP of sales of, a Microsoft and with a Salesforce of the CIO. When you actually have that kind of conversation as a QBR, a lot of deals already been done.
Mm-hmm. Right.
You know what I'm saying? It is not much of cross sales and upsells. It's like the deals are done and it's a handshake type of deal. And usually there's a lot of work that happened behind the scenes for like 3 or 4 months trying to get to that stage that they can shake hands.
No, you're on the nose. It's the material you make to make sure a QBR happens successfully. That's the secret marketing material.
You know how hard that is to make that?
No, that's it. I mean, that's the secret. So a lot of customer success time and marketing time is spent on the QBR itself.
Totally.
And what do you do? Yeah, what do you do right before it? What's that material you create right before it that got the person to validate and to adopt, to become more of a mature customer and be successful? In our case, it's somebody who, every article that they write, they're using MarketMuse in some way, shape, and form. And if that's the case, we know you're going to be successful. So we're confident in that. Like if you were doing that on every article and you used it with our metrics and you built it with a brief, and then you're using technology to check against those, well, the QBR is going to write itself, frankly. So, but it's before that. What got you to that adoption path? And that's where you made me laugh, as always, when you said, "Oh no, it's 90 minutes. Check the usage. Oh no!" That's more of it. You got to go get from there back to the thing that happened before the QBR. But I think that's an awesome thing to wrap up on. A couple offers. And I'll start with the one on the bottom and go to the top, because I think that I would love to talk a little bit more about yours. We have in soft launch right now. We have our first self-service offering, MarketMuse Pro. It goes into full launch mode. Yeah, I know. You might not even have known that. It goes into full launch mode. There's a trial from the site. It goes into full launch in the next couple weeks. There's also some exciting announcements coming that people on this thread will have early access to. So if you buzz us here, ping me directly, I'll give you some early reports that are very exciting, and let's just say they may be in the field of natural language generation.
Ooh, yes. NLP.
Yeah, that's going to be fun. So if you're listening to this and you want to get a sneak peek of anything related to that, or MarketMuse Pro, which is our self-serve offering, please let me know. If you're already a MarketMuse client in one of our large packages, there's some enhancements that will be coming for you as well. It's really going to give everybody a lot more. But on your side, Pam, thank you for offering to give our listeners and recording listeners to win one of 3 books from Pam, plus a 30-minute consultation. You can go to download the free chapter of Global Content Marketing on her site.
And also I have one which is Effective Sales Enablement. So if you are really on the sales enablement side of things, you can also download free chapter of Effective Sales Enablement on my website. Sorry, I didn't add that. I apologize.
No problem. So just by being a registrant and attendee of this webinar, you are entered in the contest to receive one of Pam's books and 30-minute consultation. So that's worth its weight in gold. Also, come see us if you're going to be around or at or about San Diego for Content Tech. It's a wonderful conference. It'll blow your mind, truly, of what people are doing in the field. Pam, are you attending any other events in the next few weeks, months?
Yeah, there is a B2B marketing exchange and B2B MX. I will be keynoting, and I'll be talking about AI. Which is, I'm so excited about when you mentioned about MLP, yes, natural language processing. And so I will be talking about AI's impact on sales and marketing, and I'll make it fun, I promise, so you better come. Awesome. Anyway, number 2, I'm also doing a workshop and a sales enablement workshop at that specific conference, which is B2B MX. And then, yes, I'm going to Content Tech, so I'll see you there, Jeff. Awesome. And your sales team, I love them.
And our sales team, who use every one of our materials every time. And we'll leave it on that. Thank you so much, Pam. And go download the recording and when you receive the update. And thanks again, Pam. We truly appreciate it. Thank you all. See you.
I can do. Thank you so much, Jeff.
All right. Bye-bye. See you.
Bye-bye.